Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. Well, today we're going to discuss a little bit more about Monterey. Is it worth actually taking the plunge and upgrading to Mac OS X, or not X, sorry, Mac OS 12? We need some other kind of code now. Anyway, so is it really worth upgrading to Mac OS Monterey on your computer? Well, that all kind of depends upon what your usage is for your computer. If it's going to be worthwhile to upgrade. You know, like, are there benefits to OS Monterey? Well, it's got a cooler interface, that's for sure. A little bit more graphic enhancement, which is nice. I'm liking that, okay? Where this becomes a problem is if you're running a program like Logic Pro or Logic Pro X. There's problems with both programs with Monterey. Unfortunately, with Logic Pro X, I have not yet discovered a cure. I've tried reinstalling the program several times. I've ripped out preference files for it to start over from scratch because I had it in there under Big Sur and it was working perfectly fine and fully updated at that. And it also shares a lot of its sound files with GarageBand. Which helps to increase GarageBand. Nice. Wonderful program too with the full-fledged mixing console that you can create as you go. Other benefits to Logic Pro X, but unfortunately Monterey doesn't seem to like Logic Pro X. And apparently from my research it doesn't like Logic Pro either. Now Logic Pro is about a $300 program, Logic Pro X is around $200. And both of them will work just fine under Big Sur and several OSs below. But unfortunately, neither one of them are working on Monterey, at least not as of yet. So we are still waiting to see if a 12.1 update from Apple is going to solve that issue. But that's not the only problem that you need to be concerned with. We have a program, open source software. If you're running a lot of open source programs on your computer, currently under Big Sur or Catalina, whichever, and you've upgraded to Monterey, you've probably noticed by now that you're fuming and smoke's coming out of your ears and nostrils because you're mad because now your programs won't work. Well, that's because Apple can't verify for some reason that it's not some sort of malware. As we see in OpenOffice, when we try and launch it, come on. Okay. Cannot be opened because the developer cannot be verified. Mac OS cannot verify this app is free from malware. Okay. Last time I checked, Mac OS was pretty darn intelligent. Looks like it lost a few IQ points here. So, yeah. Chrome downloaded this file on April 25th, 2021 from sourceforge.net. Duh. Okay, I know where I downloaded my stuff from, and it's a legit program, and it's been working fine for me for years that I've been using it, even on my Windows environment, which I will add, by the way, on Windows 11, it still works. Anyways, so, you have a choice, cancel or move to the trash. We're going to hit cancel because I would like to wait for that next OS update, if it's ever going to happen anytime soon, would be nice. Funny thing is, Audacity is also an open source program, which, by the way, works perfectly fine. Apple has no problem identifying it, yet it's an open source program. What gives? Well, I don't get it. Well, neither will you. Neither will any of us. However, we have a couple of glitches with Logic Pro X, as well as, of course, open sourced OpenOffice. Now I'm sure we're going to find more programs as I go along and start launching stuff again. I've even found a couple of games, even though they didn't have the usual circle and slash through them saying not compatible, they don't even want to launch anymore. They'll just try and quit. It's like, great. So I've lost a few games. So under Big Sur and below, when we had an incompatible program because of the OS, it simply would just give us this faded out background of our launching icon with a circle and a slash through it, kind of like a no smoking sign. And yeah, we don't get that. and we didn't get it on Open Office either. It just refuses to boot, or it gives you an error message. One of the two. So this is getting to be a little bit, was it really worth going to Monterey? However, I do need to keep Monterey on this computer because as an Apple tech, I also got to learn the new OSs as they come out too, so I can help people out and also deal with my own stuff and figure out ways around things if I can. And in this case, there's a few things I just can't. So now, luckily for me, I have a lot of Mac computers in the house that I also loaded on Logic Pro X to, and one of which I did fully update, and the other ones I still got to, because I need backup redundant systems. So this way, if something happens to this computer, I could easily go to another one. I can still do my music stuff. I can still do, well, now I have to do my typing on a different computer now for writing my songs and whatever I do with word processing programs. You know, and as far as my games go, well, the games that don't run on here anymore, well, they still run under Big Sur on one of my other computers, and they, you know, some stuff also runs on Catalina that doesn't run on Big Sur. It almost makes you forced into, if you want to have all of your cake and eat it too, you're going to have a few different computers around the house that are Macs. Anyways, hey, Windows environment's no different, so don't worry about it. They're not alone in this fight either. But in this case, we do have some issues. Now, another program I haven't tried yet, but I guess we'll give it a go, is called iMazing. This gives us a lot of data access to our iPads and stuff, and looks like, yeah, it still fires up. So we're good to go there. That's one less utility to worry about. Guitar Compass, yep, still works. Great, that's awesome. So even if you've paid for programs, some of them aren't going to work anymore on Monterey. Now, the other thing is it really worth going to Monterey on an Intel-based computer? Well, I'm going to say no. And the reason for that is simply this. If you're already running Big Sur, what do you need Monterey for? Because in 2 years' time period, Apple did say they're chopping off all the Intel-based processor Macs. So in 2 years, even if they're still supporting Monterey, which they likely will, you know, you won't get any support for security updates or anything if you're an Intel Mac user. So is it really worth going to Monterey for a 2 year time period until you're basically axed anyway? You know, I'm thinking probably not. I would stick with Big Sur and keep using your programs too, because I had no problems with any of these programs under Big Sur. I have no problems with the programs under Catalina, although I did find a bug on a Catalina update that axed a couple of my games that still actually work on Monterey and Big Sur. Go figure, it's kind of weird. I don't know what happened with that update. But anyways, so I'm going to say that if you are an Intel Mac user, leave things well enough alone. Do not upgrade to Monterey. It's not going to be worth the hassle of losing access to your software, especially software you've paid a lot of money for. And right now, Apple's offered no solutions for Logic Pro X users with Monterey. And that, like I said, that's about a $200 program. And Logic Pro, next level up, newest stuff, is $300. So I'm kind of thinking, probably not a good idea to go up to Monterey unless you really want to lose all that money that you invested. Now you can go backwards by simply just, you know, reformatting your hard drive and putting Big Sur back on. But the idea here is we like to keep up to date with our OSs. And there are, believe it or not, a lot of people out there yet that have no clue that Apple's cutting off all the Intel machines within the next 2 years. And I'm trying to educate people as best as possible on the information I've been given as well, so that they know what's going to happen. So this is just another one of those videos too where, you know, is it worth going to Monterey? Well, okay, if you're an Intel user, absolutely not. If you're an M1 user, okay, so you've got the newest processors out there, if you are also a Logic Pro user or Logic X user and you went and you want to upgrade to Monterey on your M1 machine, I'm also going to say to avoid it at all cost until Apple straightens out their garbage here and gets us all back up and running. The other thing too with the M1 chips, if you were running an open source program like our OpenOffice, because it's a fantastic program, M1 chips are going to have the same problem. You're not going to be able to run it. So I would say, you know, there may be an update that happens with open source. I'm going to have to keep an eye on things too to get Monterey compatibility. Then we can just simply reinstall that program and others. But like I said, the fixes so far that people are trying to do, and even what Apple has offered people for Logic Pro isn't working. And they've offered no fixes for Logic Pro X from Apple to get that running under Monterey. So this creates a lot of problems. So I would probably say, if you're not a Logic Pro or Pro X user, if you're not running open source programs and all your stuff is legit, and your stuff is also already good for Monterey, then I would say go to Monterey, alright? And then you're fine. But for those people who are not in that position where it's not going to be a problem, like me for example, I mean, I want Logic Pro X. I love it. It's a great program, right? And it ain't cheap, you know, because still $200 is still not cheap for a program no matter what you look at. Even $300 for Logic Pro. And it's not going to run, that is going to be a problem, okay? And to me, I mean, that's Apple developed software. That stuff should have already been made allowable compatibility with Monterey to begin with. So, but it's not. Losing out on open source, OpenOffice, yeah, that's a bit of a deal for me. I don't like that. Now, there may be legit programs you're going to run into too that are just not going to run anymore, obviously, you know, and some of the games from the App Store just aren't going to run. I mean, we're used to the games not running, which is fine. Who cares? You just, you know, have another computer that has a lower OS that runs the games, right? I mean, most of us, well, a lot of us do. So we're not really hurting that bad to play our favorite video game. But, you know, I like to not have to have a whack load of computer setup just so I can be functional in my day-to-day stuff. So, and I love my iMac, and I really do love Monterey, and like I said, I have to keep it on this one, but I wanted to use this also as my main desk for doing my studio gear for my music, because it's the most powerful Mac in my house currently, and it's also got that beautiful 5K display. And yeah, I kind of like doing that. But now I'm going to have to go back to my MacBook Pro that's already loaded up with Big Sur on it. Or sorry, no, I don't have Big Sur. I have Catalina on that one, on my MacBook Pro. But I'll have to go back to that one with Logic X and whatnot, and my other programs, and use that. I'm going to have to continue to just use OpenOffice on my Windows 11 computer because I can't use it on my Mac anymore. You know, and it's kind of like, it's a little frustrating because I like to do things a certain way, and I'm sure many of you do too. So I would say we all need to get on the bandwagon and start, you know, getting upset with Apple and, you know, getting on the phones, getting on the email, and saying, look, you need to straighten out our program, especially people using Logic. You really need to get on Apple's case like absolute pronto. And like I said, from what I've been finding, their fixes for Monterey users for Logic Pro are not working. And of course, any fixes I've found for Logic Pro X on the internet also not working with Monterey. You know, they shouldn't be releasing an OS unless their own software is already patched in there to be able to still run. Also, the lack of intelligence here. Audacity. We've shown Audacity. It's an open source program. Monterey has no problem with it working. Okay? OpenOffice, also open source. It can't determine if it's malware or not. It's like, are you kidding me? OpenOffice has been on the market for decades here. Okay, like forever. I've been using it for years on Macs and PCs. Never a problem, right? Till now. But anyway, so that's pretty much about what I got for you on this one. So if you're an Intel-based user on a Mac, I wouldn't even bother going to Monterey unless you want the prettier interface, because it is prettier. I will give it that. Okay, I do like that. And it does have some other benefits to it as well for Intel Mac users. Aside from being a pretty interface, it has some other functionalities which are nice. And I'm still discovering more as I go too. When it comes to the whole, power user thing of you want to use this in your recording studio to run Logic or like Logic Pro or Logic Pro X, I'm going to say don't go to Monterey because, well, you're going to get the shaft for now anyways. And same with some of your open source programs that are no longer going to function. And I don't know all of them that will or won't function because I have a limited amount of open source programs that I do run on my computers, and that's it, because I have interest levels like anybody else, and I am not interested in running 50,000 applications just to see what runs and what doesn't. I have better things to do with my time during the day, you know what I mean? I need to be functional, right, in what I do. So anyways, hopefully this video has helped you guys out, giving you some more train for thought. And if you have any comments to make below, as always, just be polite about them, and I'm all good with that. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.